Welcome to the final episode of the David Adam Kurz Show.
Welcome to the David Adam Kurz Show.
Hey guys, take a deep breath with me. Because if you're watching this and listening to this, you're here for the last episode of the David Adam Kurz Show. And I want to say this clearly before anything else. This is not a breakdown. This is not a failure. This is not me disappearing, by the way. This is a transition. For years, this show has been a place where I shared wins, lessons, scars, faith, doubt, confidence, fear, and the messy middle of building something real. Today is not about trying to bow on anything. Today is about telling people the truth. I didn't wake up one day and decide to end the show, by the way. This decision came from reflection, from pressure, from change, from growth. And sometimes the bravest thing you could do is admit that the version of you who started something is not the same version who needs to carry it forward. And if you try to force it, you end up drifting back into the habits and identities and the roles that no longer fit the man you're becoming. Look, I've spent most of my life building companies, building teams, building brands, building momentum. But what no one talks about is the discipline required to lay something down with integrity. Let me say this plainly. I am not perfect. No surprise there, right? I've made mistakes. I've trusted the wrong people. I've stayed too long in situations that require a different version of leadership than I was giving. And for a long time, I confused movement with alignment. And just because you can survive something doesn't mean you're supposed to stay there. Just because you help build something doesn't mean you're required to bleed for it forever. Growth doesn't always look like expansion. Sometimes growth looks like release. And I want to say this part carefully. When things end, especially things tied to identity and income, reputation, or ego, there's anger. There's a voice that says, retaliate, prove them wrong, burn it down. I've heard that voice. But leadership isn't about acting on the loudest emotion. It's about choosing the highest road, even when it costs you pride. I don't want to win arguments. I want to win alignment. And that means not carrying bitterness into the next season of my life. This show taught me something very powerful. People don't follow perfection. They follow honesty. They don't need another expert. They need someone willing to say, I don't have it all figured out, but you know what? I'm willing to do the work. And if you've ever listened to this show and felt less alone, if you ever took action because of something I've said here or what was said here, if you've ever questioned your own comfort zone, then the show did its job. And I'm deeply, forever grateful. So thank you for the messages. Thank you for the conversations. Thank you for trusting me with your time, because time is sacred. And here's the truth I need to say out loud. The show was built by a man who was still proving himself. The next chapter of my life is being built by a man who knows who he is. I don't need to explain everything anymore. I don't need to justify every move. I don't need to carry titles that anchor me to old expectations. Some chapters end quietly, not because they failed, but because they fulfilled their purpose. The show carried me into a season. That season is now complete. If you're watching this and you're in the middle of your own transition, hear me clearly, man. You're not weak for changing direction. You're not a quitter for choosing peace. You're not behind because your path looks different now. Sometimes the bravest thing you can say is, this is no longer fits who I'm becoming. And then you act accordingly. Without drama, without announcements, without revenge, just integrity. I believe deeply that God closes doors we're too stubborn to close ourselves. Not to punish us, but to protect us from staying small inside of something we've outgrown. Look, I don't know every detail of what comes next, but I know this. I'm walking forward lighter, clearer, more disciplined, more anchored. And that matters more than visibility. I'm not disappearing, just becoming more intentional about where my energy goes and what actually deserves my voice. Some things will be built quietly. Some things won't need explanation. Some things will be shared later when they're ready. But this chapter is now done. And I'm at peace with that. So to anyone who's been here from the beginning, oh, man, thank you. And to anyone who found this show when they needed it most, I'm beyond honored. And to the man I was when I started this, thank you for having the courage to begin even without clarity. This is not an ending, it's a handoff, a deep breath, a step forward. But this has been the David Adam Kurz Show. And this is me choosing alignment over attachment. Be well, walk with integrity. And most importantly, don't be afraid to close chapters that no longer serve the man or the woman that you are becoming. God bless.